All right, I think we're good to go. Press the record button this time, so I think we're good to go. Am I cut off on the video? Here? Sorry? Oh yeah, I know, but I don't care about me. It's only the screen. It's only the screen. I'm not recording me. Yeah, no one wants to see my tummy. All right. All right, so let's start. Welcome everyone to week 9. I only have one announcement, and it's a pretty big announcement. Okay, it's not that big. I basically changed assignment number 2. So remember before the reading week, I put a series of 3 videos. The first video was like, I've got an idea for assignment number 2. Here it is. Yeah, scrap that. So if you haven't watched it, don't worry about it. So here I'm going to show you my prototype for assignment number 2. Okay. So this is what I came up with. Bootstrap, has this theme called, oh, not theme, sorry, has this example called album example. Okay. What I did, I just took this HTML and I did the same kind of JavaScript thing that we did for last semester's JavaScript class with the email assignment, so that each one is dynamically inserted based on the number of JSON elements that you have. So I took that and created this. Okay, so what's going to happen is I'm going to give you this, and all you have to do in your code is this: create a file called portfolio.json, say export const whatever, and you're just creating an array of JSON elements. So it's just pure English writing. There's no coding. All the code is based on the stuff you've done already or are going to do in the labs or exercises. So for example, here's the bendy line, right? And I say bending line for the title. You could put your own picture if you want. I'm not asking for that, or GIF, whatever. Put a little description here, which comes from this field, description. And then you put your URL to CodePen, or maybe even if it's a local index.html, or even if it's a PDF. So here's the example of that. So bending line, this uses an iframe, and this is actually CodePen in the background. The reason why you don't see the CodePen header is because in CodePen, you can actually do this. Let's say this is my CodePen. You can actually say, instead of giving this URL, you can just say change view debug mode, and that will give you a nice clean view. So you could use this in your iframe. Use this link for your iframe. Okay, so that's why you're seeing where to go. This, right? So notice the title is there, the example is there, and your description is there. Let's try the second one. The second one is using a local file. Notice here I'm saying local, my local index.html. So you click on that. So this is my toggle thing, right? As you saw before. And then the third one, as you can see here, this is the storyboard that you created back in week 2. It was linking to your PDF. So you click on that, and there you go. So this is like an e-portfolio to show future employers what you've accomplished in this course. Okay, so I'm not asking you to create any animations, any new animations per se, aside from if I refresh this page right now, watch the boxes slowly stagger in using tween max. Wow, big deal. But I mean, you could do whatever you want. But all the main stuff is stuff you've already done since week 1 or week 2, plus stuff you're going to do in labs and exercises. And it's just a compilation of ePortfolio. I thought that was the best way to go, seeing you guys are very, very busy with your other more important courses, may I say. And so basically, all you're doing is creating this JSON file. This will be assignment number 2. It hasn't been released yet because I still have yet to put this in writing. But this is all you're going to do. Is you're going to create a JSON file that looks like this. So it's just a lot of typing of English words, not a lot of coding, and you're done. Because my JavaScript code takes care of everything else of displaying this. Okay? Nice? You like? Okay, cool. Or I can make it a little harder. I could not give you my JavaScript code, and you just take the Bootstrap HTML template and did what we did in last semester to make it dynamic. Based on, I'll give you 2% for that bonus. Okay. So let's continue on with GreenSock. Any questions or comments so far? What am I doing here? Nothing. We don't care about that. All right. So here's our little map. Again, we've covered all the CSS stuff. We are now here in the land of GreenSock. But really, we've hopped over to SVG land as well. So we're learning a lot about SVG. And today's class will take a deeper dive into SVG as well. We're not going to really touch a lot of these other ones, maybe just in passing. Like I think I mentioned last week that vanilla JavaScript. If you're going to do the vanilla JavaScript way, you'd have to know a lot of mathematics and a lot of intersections and get bound rectangle coordinates and all that. WebGL, I just mentioned that in passing today as one of those Twitter links that I found. Canvas, we'll touch that a little bit in the future. And Web Animation API, again, I'm just going to mention that in passing. So again, we're just going to focus on this land here. So today's class, we're going to focus on SVG anatomy, which will get more in depth about SVGs. We're going to learn about a new cool plugin that GreenSock has called morphSVG, one of the most popular plugins. And thirdly, we're going to learn about the position parameters when using GreenSock timelines. And this is where your lab comes in. And hopefully you brought your earphones or earbuds. Because Lab 9 will basically be consisting of you listening to a video tutorial series on lynda.com and just following along. All right. So first thing is SVG, a little bit more in depth of SVG. So here, an example, here's an example of a pair in SVG. So here's the essential code that I want you to focus on. Where you have the width, you have the height, and you have a view box. So think of SVG like graph paper, except it goes infinite in all directions. Okay. This here, where it says width and height, that is called the viewport. This here, obviously, is called the view box. But to get a little bit better understanding of what's happening, let me just click on the code pen and show you, and just let me just create a quick border on the SVG. So how would the SVG look if we were to change some of these values around? Let me just magnify this one here. This is the line here that we're going to focus on. And we're just going to take a look. If we were to, for example, take off 50 pixels for each of these values. Actually, before I even do that, watch what happens if I take away the width and the height entirely. By the way, you don't actually need the width and height there. By default, if you take away the width and heights, the SVG, it will take up the whole screen width. Now you're just left with the view box. But that's cool because in your CSS now, you can say something like this, SVG, I want the width to be 300 pixels, and now you can control it to whatever you want. Let's try removing 50 pixels off of this value and this value. What's going to happen? So the way that I currently picture it, my mental model is this is the x coordinate and this is the y coordinate of the beginning of your point of origin, which is always the top left corner here of the image. And then this is the x and the y again for the last. So it's going 115 x, 190 y. One big thing I realized is the view box is not in pixels. The SVG has its own coordinate system, like graph paper. So there's all these little points that it considers, here's 115, here's its own 115, here's its own 190. But in SVG, in my CSS, if I say stretch to 300 pixels, it's still the same 115 and 190. It's just that the graph paper boxes just got bigger. Okay. So what happens if I were to take off 50 from here? That means it starts from here. And think of a view box as a window into a house. So it starts from here. 50 pixels off of x would probably land it right here. And 50 pixels off of 190 would probably land it right here. So really, it starts here, it ends here. That means my windows, if you can imagine a rectangle that goes like this, choo, 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 choo. I should only focus on this section of the pair. Let's try it out. So I'll just say 50. I'll just say 140. There. That's the section of the pair that we predicted what would happen. Okay. So it may be, when I first learned this last year, it was so counterintuitive. It's only this year that I'm totally getting it a little bit more of how SVG works. Okay. So that's that. So that's when you're matching dimensions. And what we just did was we reduced dimensions by taking out 50 pixels off. So here, when you say view box 65, 140, you're just seeing that section, okay? Again, because you started off here, 0, 0, you ended off here, 65, 140, and that's why you're just seeing this window, this view box only. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Now here is another code pen that I'll just open up. So oops. So here's another code pen that I'll just open up. So same thing here. If I were to, I'm just going to reiterate. Let me just take away this width and height. I don't need it. Should take up the whole thing, and it does. And then if I were to say, I want to focus on maybe from here, 0, 0, and maybe halfway around here. So halfway of 700 is 350. So let's just try that. 350. So notice how I'm only seeing the first 3 shapes now. So hopefully you're starting to get what this view box means. Okay. This tool here is cool. It's a very useful tool to learn about the SVG view box, and I put a link to this person's demo on CodePen, Sarah Suadane. I don't know. So she created this. Oh, this is not on CodePen. This is on her own website. You can actually edit the different values and see what the resulting SVG would look like. Okay? And notice, remember how I said the SVG has its own coordinate system like graph paper? See, notice, and remember how I said when you think of the boxes that can shrink and get larger? Notice how when I increase the width to 1600, it actually gets smaller, which is counterintuitive at first, which is why I was confused last year. But what's really happening is these graph boxes the widths and the heights are getting smaller because you're actually, you want a bigger window into the house, so to speak. That's why it's smaller. So it's kind of counterintuitive like that. But just keep that in mind. So if you move the width to 200, it actually moves to the right. And this one here, preserve aspect ratio, 9 times out of 10, you'll never have to touch this. But I will show you a slide in case you want to know about it in a second. Okay, next one. So I'm just going to try the other way. So I'm not going to touch the view box in this example. I'm just going to touch the width and the height. So starting from our original example, let's add an additional 200 pixels to both the width and the height of the viewport. And what will happen is the image will scale up to match these dimensions. Actually, I already showed that, right? When I basically took away the width and the height, I deleted it. It kind of filled it up with or you could use CSS to say width equals 300 and it just makes it so. So the view box is set to cover the entire image, making the whole pair visible. Here's what happens when you change the first 2 coordinates, right? Because here we have a view box that starts with something other than 0, 0. So this one here it starts at 50, ends at 30. So that's why you're seeing this kind of pair, because you're not seeing the point of origin at the top left corner anymore. You're starting, halfway down, halfway across kind of thing. That's why you're seeing this. It's just something to keep in mind. Here's the preserved aspect ratio, which you'll probably never need, but in case you need to know about it. There's basically 3 options. There's meet, slice, and none. So, and you also have this X min or Y min, and then you put your one of 3 options, meet, slice, or none. Let's try this out. So let's try this example here for the meet. I'm gonna try this Y min, Y mid, Y min, Y mid, Y max. Let me just see. Oops, cancel that. Let's see what happens here. I can undo, I undo that. So within the SVG itself, let me magnify this. Ooh, too much. I say preserve aspect ratio, then by default, it's X mid, Y mid, mean. That's the default. However, if I say, let's try this slide here where it says Y max, that means it should go to the bottom, I think. I don't know. Let's see. I'll do anything? No. Why not? Because maybe greater than. Okay, that example just totally didn't work. As you can see, I'm still learning. But slice also allows you to slice the image like so. So you can actually magnify the image to fill the entire screen. And it's just, you could say something like X min and Y min, and it'll only show that portion, for example. Or if you want your SVG to actually stretch based on your CSS, like if you say you want your CSS to stretch, you can actually say none. And an example of that is this website here, whoops, right here. So the person, Sarah Drasner, who created this website, she created this triangle right here with a preserved aspect of none, so that when you when you shrink it like a responsive way, it's stretching, right? Because usually SVGs will never stretch. And if you look at her code and inspect her code, you'll see a preserve aspect ratio of none right there. Preserve aspect ratio of none. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind if you were to use that. Another thing that you should know about when it comes to SVGs is you have to optimize your SVGs. Usually when you're using Adobe Illustrator or Inkscape or Sketch, when you save your image as an SVG, you'll get a lot of junk. I don't know if any of you have ever tried saving a Word document as an HTML page. Has anyone ever tried that before? Yeah, it's like a lot of junk, right? So there's 3 tools listed here. The only one that you should know about really is this one here, SVG OMG. So let's check this out. I'm going to open this up. And let me open up an SVG. I'm going to open up a, let's see here. Where did my, no, I think it went here. Oh, shoot. Where'd it go? I wanted an SVG. Let's try this one. Nope. Nope. Where did it go? PG documents, index files. Man, where did my cat go? I'm looking for this. No, not the PNG. All right. Let's just use their example. They have a demo here. So this is their an SVG you could have, but notice here on the right-hand side, you can actually have all these different toggles. So when you're doing animation work with SVG, what you should be doing is just keep this tab open. This website was created by Jake Archibald, who works for Google. And what Sarah Drasner does whenever she creates animation is she always has this tab open to put in her SVGs in order to optimize it. Okay. So let's toggle this. Let's show original. So this example, show original, it's 8.4 kilobytes. But watch what happens when it's optimized. It's now down to 5.12 kilobytes. Okay, and you can toggle and play with all these other ones. What else? There's also a cool one here, a tab called markup. So you can actually see the markup. So let's see how it was in the original. Here's the original, right? And then if I click on the toggle, it optimizes it. So it gets notice it got rid of all of the junk that was in the SVG tag. You can also remember how last week you were kind of struggling in CodePen with the whole markup. Well, this one you can prettify the markup, right? Because here's the messy markup of SVG code. But if you click on this one, prettify markup, it makes it nice for you. So that's another useful tool. What else? So in your in-class exercise today, I'll ask you to use this to just try your hands on using this optimizer. And the other tools that I mentioned here, this one here, Peter Collingridge SVG editor. This is just an older editor, not used as much. And this one here, SVGO, this is purely text-based because you need Node. Okay, but most of the time you'll be using this one here. There's also a link here from SitePoint where it explains a little bit more with these tools. Oh, and I forgot one other link that I forgot to mention. Back in this demo, Sarah Tudane, she actually puts a link at the top of her page right here. She created an article, part 1 here. So if you want to take the time to read how FTP coordinates work, she actually created 3 articles, and this is just part 1. All right. Let's see what else. All right. So now to the exciting part. So that was just a deep dive into SVG. What we're going to do now is we're going to go back to CodePen and try this new plugin, a relatively new plugin called morphSVG. And this is one of those things, when I first saw it, it blew me away. There's, in my experience of starting with the web where it looked like Wikipedia all the time, there's, a few moments that I saw when I saw their webpage and I said, wow, how did they do that? The first one for me was Google Maps, where I didn't know how they could move the map and slide it without refreshing the page, right? And then this morphSVG is another one. So I will let you experience what I experienced. So instead of me demonstrating it, I will let you try it from scratch so that you get the experience. So open up a CodePen. Yeah, just open up a new CodePen on yours, and we're gonna try this out. So this is one of those exciting features that GreenSock has to offer. It basically mutates from one shape to another shape, and the syntax is like this. It just puts the ID of your first SVG path and the ID of your second SVG path, and it basically mutates the shapes of even mutate shapes of uneven paths beautifully. But the point is it needs a path. It does not work with rectangles or other shapes, but you can still get by with, there is a way to get by, or there is a way to convert your circles and rectangles into paths, and I'll show you that in a second. And if you remember last week when I showed you that Star Wars animation, this is what it used to change all the faces. So in order to use this, you need the paid plugin morphSVG. So this is a paid plugin. However, because CodePen has a partnership with GreenSock, that you can use all of their paid plugins for free on CodePen. That's cool. That's why we're using CodePen. So let's open up. Oh, so this page here, you need this. So eventually you're going to have to say copy this library. Okay. So let's start from the beginning. So follow along with me, but I'll leave the last part for you to try. Let's open up a new CodePen. Here we go. So I've listed the steps that you're about to do now, and this will be your in-class exercise 9 that you will submit. Okay. So there's 8 steps. Here's 1 through 4. The next slide is 5 through 8. Let's do this together, but I'll leave the last steps up to you. So we're going to include both the GreenSock library and the morphSVG plugin. So the first step is in CodePen, click on the gear icon. And in the search, just search for Tween Max. And you'll see this GSAP option, which is your Tween Max. So click on the GSAP. Notice how it appears here. Again, this is just like if you were to in your HTML code, say script source equals this link. That's what we're doing, right, in CodePen. In the second one, in the second text box below it, this is where the previous slide comes in handy. Or you could just Google GreenSock CodePen plugins, and you'll get this page. So just click on this button for copy. or morphSVG, copy. So you got this URL now, right? Then paste it in your second text box here. And you'll see that it's now called morphSVG plugin.min.js. Everyone caught up there? Save and click on save and close. Now you got both libraries. The next step, as you can see from the slide, is grab two SVG icons. Now I created a link here that says amazondesk.svg. I want you to just right click that, open up a new tab. So you're in this GitHub page. So this is a person that made all these SVG images of different logos. We're going to use the Amazon one for, actually, hold on. Let's use the Amazon one. So if you click on the Amazon one, it looks like this. But to get the SVG code, you have to click on this button here called raw in GitHub. Okay, so click on raw to see the actual code that makes that logo. There's the SVG code. So let's copy all of that code. And before I paste it, like you could paste it right now just for now, but in the actual in-class exercise, what I really want you to do is go to that optimizer. So let me just demonstrate that again. SVG OMG. So here, I'm going to paste my markup. Paste, and there's the logo there. And as you can see, it optimized it by 6 bytes. I know it's not very much, but I just wanted you to experience optimizer. And there's no way for me to check that you optimized it, so we'll just move on. So go ahead and paste your SVG code in HTML, the HTML section. So now it looks like this. Yeah, I should have grabbed the markup from the other one, but because it only reduced it by 6, it wasn't really worth it. And but I just wanted you to practice that optimization. There's no way for me to check it. It's just I just wanted you to go through that workflow. So for future, when you do future animations, at least you know that workflow of going to optimize it. Okay, so here it is. Now let's grab another icon from that GitHub page. So let's go back to that GitHub page. Let's go back. Let's choose a different one like Apple. So Apple SVG, I see that. Click on that and we'll do the same. So click on raw. This time I'll do what you said, Brando. I'll go to my optimizer, paste my markup. There it is. And here's my markup. If I click on markup, there it is. So I'll use this instead. Optimize markup, I'll copy that, go into my code pen, paste it in. Now you should have 2 logos. Everyone caught up? Cool. Next step. Remember what I said, morphSVG only works with paths. So let's make, let's create an ID for the different paths that we have. Okay, so for this first path here, for the Amazon one, I'm just going to say ID equals Amazon. Same one for the Apple. I'm looking for the path tag, and I'm just going to create ID equals Apple. Now, remember what I said? morphSVG only works with paths and not circles or rectangles. Let me show you something here in my slide. Where'd it go? Or is it in my thing here? sock.com morphSVG. Let me just show you this real quick. If you're ever in a situation where you only have like rectangles, or maybe you have some rectangles or circles in addition to paths, you can do this. On GreenSock's webpage here, there is a utility function called morphSVG plugin .convert to path that can convert primitive shapes like circles directly into the equivalent path. So that's an FYI. We don't need that here, I don't think. All right. So what we're going to do, if we go back to this slide here, we're just going to use this syntax. So I want you, this is where the last part comes in. I want you to try this. So I won't do this yet. I want you to try this first. So use this syntax, replace the appropriate IDs, and something should happen. We'll give you 1 minute for that. This goes in your JavaScript, yes. Did something happen? Yeah? Nothing good? But it should have morphed, right? Let me see. Let me see. Oh, you have different images? Oh, okay. Okay. Well, at least more, yeah. Doing something. You probably had more paths than just the one, is my guess. So, because I'm guessing, Matt, because those are your own custom images, you probably had more paths than just the one. Is that correct? Really? Oh, okay. But did it morph correctly in terms of one shape to the other? Okay. All right, then it did its job. Did it morph, you guys over there? Yeah? So this is what it's supposed to do. Check it out. Let me just copy this. Yeah, so I'm going to say Amazon here, and then Apple over here, and then watch the logo. It should change there. You get that? There's one, oh, there's one there. No, you want it in the path. Oh, you don't want it, yeah. So take that out. Okay. Yes. Cool. Yeah. Oh, cool. Oh, Mark?
And I got back to SVG, MasterCard, so we just need to create an ID for each of those to work.
Yeah.
Are these two, right? I got tweet
Yes,
Max
yes,
and morphSVG.
Yes. So then these IDs, you have to change this accordingly. So you need to create your own ID. So this path bring ID equals something.
Yeah.
So once you establish your ID there, then you have to change this JavaScript.
Yeah, just making sure.
Okay. So Amazon, yes, scroll down on the one. You've got ID filled out. And then you have to, once you do that, you have to change these variables accordingly. Okay?
But CSS, I need something before I
You don't need CSS.
So you copy,
I'm going to demonstrate it right now on my screen. Okay. So let me take it up. So all I did again, fine. So I said ID equals Amazon for the first one. I said ID equals Apple for the second one. And then for the JavaScript, I said tween max to Amazon. And then the second one is just Apple. And that's why you see the this effect here. Now, let's try to make it a little better. Like I want it to, I don't want the second logo to appear at all. And maybe I want a delay. So let's just put a delay here. I'll just say 1.5 seconds so that it waits 1.5 seconds before it actually animates. Okay, I'm going to hide the second Apple logo for now because I don't want that to appear. So in my CSS, I'm just going to say, oh, I have to target now. So this is where I'm going to put an ID. I'm going to create a new ID for the second SVG. I'm going to say maybe ID equals Apple logo, just to have that in my CSS. So in the CSS, I'll just say hashtag Apple logo, and I'll just say display none. It should no longer appear. And I want it to change color to the Apple logo as well. So how do you change color in SVG? There is no such thing as background color in SVG. There is such thing as fill. That's what you want to target. But there's no such thing in CSS where you can target fill in SVG. So what's the answer to that? You're using the green socks attra for attribute, right? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to say we're going to target this fill right here, which is currently no, not that one. I want to target this one right here. This fill right here for the that's with the SVG, and I want to change that to the Apple one. So here's what I'm saying. I'm going to say tween max.to. And this time I'm going to target Amazon logo. Actually, if you look carefully, actually, my bad. This fill is not with the SVG as I once thought. It's actually with the rect, which is one element beneath SVG. So in my selecting, I'm going to say Amazon logo rect. I guess I could greater than sign just to be more specific. I guess. Then I'll transition that in 1 second. And this is where I'm going to use the attra. So I'll say attr colon. And it's important to put the squiggly brackets immediately after the attra colon so that you don't forget. Inside these squiggly brackets, you can type in any of the attributes inside the SVG tag. And since we're targeting the fill, I'm just going to type in fill colon. And then I'm going to put in the color of the Apple logo, which is hashtag 555. And let's also delay. I think that should work. Let me just see. Does that work? Put a delay in that as well. Of 1.5, just to match the 1.5 here. And does it work? No, why not? Thank you. That's why it doesn't work. ID equals Amazon logo. Oh, there it is. Oh, that kind of looked silly. Let's try that again. Oh, I wanted that at the same times. What was that? Right. So, oh, I want it to be together. Yeah, let's try that. Yeah, there you go. Cool. So for yours, in-class exercise, let me go to Blackboard, and this is where you can try your own SVGs if you have one or a couple. So your in-class exercise, which I'll give you like time to do right now, is basically the same thing, except you're getting your SVG images based on the initials of your name. So you can use the same link that I showed you earlier for the GitHub, or you can use this one, simple icons. And so in my example, Albert Villers, AV, I could choose the Amazon logo followed by the View logo, and then morph between the two. Then step 2 is use the optimizer just to get experience. Again, there's no way for me to mark that, so if you skip that, I won't know. But just try to get experience with that. And then step 3, use morphSVG to morph between the 2 images. Oh, one other thing that's cool. Bugging in GreenSock. Check this out. There's this useful tool in GreenSock that allows you to have this play bar where you can edit the speed, where you can pause it, play it, that kind of thing. How do you get that play bar? Easy, one line of code. Just copy this, gsdevtools.create, put that in your JavaScript, and you'll now see a play bar, hopefully, come up. Yes. Oh, right. No, not yet, because I have to include the library for that. So if I go back to my libraries over here, this is the same page where you got the morphSVG library. Here is the link for the GS Dev Tools. So if I copy that link and put it in my CodePen as well, so I'll see, add another resource, paste in that, and then save and close. I should now see there. So now notice how I now have a play bar just with one line of code and including that one library. Again, this is a paid plugin. But the benefit of this is you could pause, you could change the speed. See, I could make this animate 10 times the speed if I wanted to, right? Or maybe half the speed if I wanted to see more carefully what's happening under the hood. And there would be more options here as well if I had used different options, just like this example here. But yeah, so that's just with one line of code and including one library, you can have that feature as well. So that's required of you in your in-class exercise where I say include the GS Dev Tools also. And then to submit, just submit your link on Blackboard. And that's it. And I've also given you a bonus. If for 2%, I want you to recreate this download button. If you want, it's bonus. So just email me if you've done it for an extra 2%. Okay. So I'll give you time right now to do this in-class exercises, which uses different images, and just hand that in. Okay. Yeah. Question, Matt. Yeah, sure.
will automatically decide how they're naming it, but there are tools where you can tell the feedback, and if that and that is we can share.
Oh, yeah, the GSAP tools. There's two steps. So you first go to the that page of an old plugin, and then include the library for it. So copy that. Then, Google, like these are. Oh yeah, you find them. It's like it's almost a version of the you know. And then you should see a timeline. Yeah. So before we go on break, let me share with you some of the stuff I found on Twitter this past week. So you're once you graduate, you'll probably get you know how in every interview, after they do your interview, they ask you, do you have any questions for us? So I found this past week this page, how to interview your interviewers when you're looking for a job. 12 questions to ask at tech interviews. Beautiful. So for example, what is the hiring process? Tell me a little bit about the tech team. Or hold on. What is your ideal candidate for this role? What are the biggest challenges for this role? Who sets the vision for this company? So all these kinds of questions, they want to know that you're interested in the company and that you're a good fit, right? So if you're always inquisitive and asking questions, that's a good sign for them. This is where I'm going to touch upon this map here. So remember the beginning map that I always show at the beginning of class, this one? I'm going to touch upon this WebGL for a second through one of my Twitter links here. And this one here, wave animation with 3JS. 3JS allows you to create stuff like this. You know, this. So when you see web pages like this, it's using 3JS. And 3JS under hood uses WebGL. So basically, from what I understand, WebGL is very low level. It's not very nice to work with. So 3JS built on top of WebGL, so it's nicer to work with. But this is the kind of animation, 3D animation to expect when you're working with 3JS. So I have a link here. What was that? Yeah, it was moving. So when I was, depending on my mouse cursor, it did I would say like a parallax kind of effect. So I'm moving left and it moves. If I'm moving right, it kind of moves too, right? So just check that link out for a way of how they did that. What is this one? Accessing sibling JS default. Oh yeah. So this was a tweet. Did you know? I didn't know this. Where was the example? Using JavaScript default function parameters, you can access other parameters from right inside the definition. So I think he said, oh yeah, so this first line right here. So he creates a function, display modal. He passes in a parameter called title, but he also uses that title right here and uses as a default parameter for close button text, which is kind of neat. I didn't know. So within the function's own parameter, you can actually call each other's variables. That's kind of neat. So that's it. So you got 5 minutes to submit your in-class exercise 9. You got 20 minutes for break. What was that? Yeah, you got 5 minutes to submit your thing, and you got 20 minutes break right after. So almost at the top of the hour. No. Yeah. Basically, you got 25 minutes. Assuming that you have React and Keybase in the proper areas. So let's check if you have that in the proper areas. So the first one is here. Where's your ID of React? Right there. Okay, and you said, that's what you said here, right? Sorry. Yes. And then you said Keybase, the next one. And then you have that. Yes, okay. We're also assuming that the proper libraries were installed. So let's check your, Oh, that's why it's not working. So you forgot to include the proper library. So right now, let's search for TweenMax. Right? There's TweenMax. So that's there now, right? So that's just like as if you were to say here's script source equals this. That's what that is, right? Then here you need the paid plugin one. So in my slides here, morphSVG. So you need this link. Right, which you can just get copy. So copy. So now it has that link. Then we're going to paste it here. Paste there. So if you save, it should do something. See?
Oh.
Yeah. So you have to add the libraries.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's up to you. I didn't ask for it, so I guess not. But depends how far you want to take it, right? It's not working, Steve?
Let's find letters and let's find.
There's one. Oh, you know, there's
Okay, so try adding a class of S or a class of D.
Oh,
And then, yeah, see if that works.
Can I put class in both tabs?
Yeah. Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
but the same thing. Try that.
Tell me if it works. I'm curious to know.
And did you include the plugin too for the GSAP plugin? Did you include that also? Did you include that in your card?
I've only ever seen YouTube videos.
Yeah. I really like the one video that did the hockey interview. It's like, it's funny, yeah, it's just in every hockey interview, like, they all answer the questions the same pretty well. You know, just, gotta get hooks deep, get hooks in there. Yeah, you gotta put these hockey games.
Yeah, so your coach has been,
Yeah, allegedly doing, was Coach allegedly doing, porn star hockey for that, so he said that, well, you just gotta go hard,
what Pete?
No.
No.
It's, yeah. That's, you gotta make it.
I don't know about recording, but.
I was
So
gonna.
it's changing.
It was an extra large.
Not going hard. Yeah.
But my mom, or my buddy's mom has a bigger beer. Like he will do it.
But the thing is more than no, it's not yet. All right, there you go.
I just checked too, Steve. Look,
Yeah, you're right.
this morphSVG plugin converts a path. It doesn't, out of all these elements, text is not one of them.
I made the text in those.
Yeah.
Albert,
Hey.
so one SVG. Yeah. such as a great-
Now, five is an IP. How did that?
Albert, I just have to say, I love your comments back on that. Yeah, you did give the best comments though.
But my favorite one was my most recent one for last week. Yes. That was the whole comment.
I love it.
Yep.
Pretty good.
Was I the last mark or something? You just wanted to.
No. Whenever it's like,
Yeah.
I'll just, I'm like, it's the.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, but if there's mistakes, then I'll outline them.
Yeah.
I'll try to think of something more funny next time.
Are you a Star Trek fan?
Not really.
Okay, I can't use Star Trek.
Kids don't know what they're missing. I know. Captain Kirk. So did it work? Did it finally work? I've got it. Yeah? Oh, nice. And you're using the classes, right? Yeah, nice.
So it has us doing a button for JavaScript.
A button?
Yeah, so I'm going to do it says do something, so I'm going to do what we did in the buttons. All right.
Which one? The toggle button?
The toggle.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he just has us doing the styling of buttons and stuff like
Using a button
gradients
tag
and that. No, using rounding corners.
Okay.
So probably just going to redo it, make it look the button with your shadows. Make it look
Yeah. That's cool.
Why does the JSON SVG have a rotate? Come on.
What are you talking about?
Why is it the only
Let me
J
see what you're talking about.
use transform rotate? Because of one of these. So this is the normal one, and then this one's the rotated one.
Oh, so it's affecting what's happening.
Well, you have to use a rotate to get it back to normal. You have the normal one for that one. And this one here is rotated.
I didn't think about it.
Just give bonus points to people with J's.
Yeah.
Also, Owen,
Mhm.
these images, I don't think you copied them over. Wherever they're-
As long as it morphs, Josh,
Okay, these images.
sorry, Josh, as long as it morphs, I'm happy.
These images. They got problem last time.
The capital PNG versus the small PNG.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just so you know,
Yes, thank you.
we'll pass that slide, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
Just skip it, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are two sub-processes needed in the library for case logging. Included in the article.
Wait, so. They're waiting for this to go for a while.
If you want to pick another logo, Josh, feel free. If you want to pick a different logo because it's causing too much headaches, you can pick another one.
Are you wanting the bonus attached to the code pen?
You can if you want to, or you can just email me directly once you finish it. Just like remember last time where you did the the iPhone wobble thing. I think you just didn't you just email me?
Yeah, I added the link. I gave you 2 links.
Okay, yeah. Either way. Yeah, yeah.
The download button. I did.
All right. Just before we start, so frequently asked questions over the break. How come it's not working? Possible answer. Remember to include your library for the GS dev tools, and also for TweenMax, and also for the morphSVG in your CodePen. question, I have more than one path. What do I do? Answer, instead of an ID, use a class. And see if that works. And I think that was it. All right. So any questions or comments before we move on to the next section? So you have to use try these classes. Okay, so just a review of last week of using timelines in GreenSock. This code is using a timeline max, and I've actually created different sliders here just so that gives you a visual representation of the timing. So the width, let's pretend the width of these green sliders is 1 second. Okay, so here in the code you can see that the green box, which refers to this one, will transition. It'll go to the right in 1 second. So that means this animation goes first, the green box, and then the second one. Because it's a timeline, it happens right after the first one. So that means since this is the first one, right after the first one means that the blue box happens at that moment in time, and followed by the orange one. So if I click on the run button right now, I essentially should see the green, followed by the blue, followed by the orange. Here we go, click run. And each is happening in 1 second, right? Simple. So that's just a review of last week. Now, introducing the all-important position parameter. And we touched upon this a little last week when I talked about adding labels. But yes, you can use position parameters with labels, but you can also do it with much more. So this is, you could use it in 4 or 5 different ways, which I'm about to show you right now. So this is important because this parameter is important because let's say, okay, I'm going to pretend to be a robot right now, and I'm going to like try to animate myself and basically do the robot dance. So you don't want your robot to like move your arm like this, like and then move your head like that, and move your other arm like that's you want it to flow. So you want it to like that, right? And how do you do that? The answer is with the position parameters. Okay, if the webcam was on me, you'd laugh. Okay, anyways, so introducing the position parameter. This is the secret to building sequences with precise timing, because you can control the placement of your tweens and labels and all this stuff anywhere you want. And most likely you'll have to use, oh, actually, I'll just go through it. So here's the first way to do it. Use of the plus equals. So here I'm using a position parameter called plus equals 1. What that will do in this case, the second line for the blue square, is it will add 1 or insert 1 second between the first one and the current one, the second one. So before I click on run, this green square, as you can see from the code, it will run for 1 second. So that means this slider should go here, right? Now, normally the blue square would run right after this, right? Because it's a timeline, it goes in sequence for 1 second as well. However, because we now have a plus equals 1, it will wait 1 second. So the end of this second is right here. So that means the blue square now begins here. Okay, at that second mark, the 2 second mark. And then similarly, this normally orange square would begin right after the second one. However, because we now have a plus equals 2, what would you expect? You would expect it to be 2 seconds after this one. So here's 1 second. So let's move that to 1 second. And then another second. So let's move that to another second. So this is what you should expect with this code here. So before I click on run, I should expect the green square to move, then wait 1 second delay before this one moves, and then 2 second delay before this one moves. Let's check it out. Run, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, kind of thing, right? So that's where you're using plus equals 1. Next use is this one, minus equals 1. And out of the 4 or 5 different ways that I'm showing you how to use the position parameter, this is probably the most common way that you'll use it in order to make things flow, right? In order to make the robot flow, you want to use the minus, not really the plus, because you want it to overlap other ones. So here in the code, you'll see that the green square moves for 1 second. So that's like this. Okay, great. Now, the blue square would normally go right after it, but because we're now saying minus equals 0.5 seconds, that means before the first square even ends its animation, So before the first square even ends, the second square will begin to animate halfway at the 0.5 second mark. Similarly, for the third one, it would normally start here at the end of this animation. However, because this also has a minus equals 0.5, it's now going to go 0.5 seconds earlier than usual. So before I click on run, what would you expect? I would expect that the green would animate, and halfway in its animation, the blue would also start animation. Halfway for the blue, then the orange would also start animation. Okay, let's click on run, see if that's the case. Run. See that? Okay. Third way to use position parameter is as an absolute value, where you don't have any minus equals or plus equals. You just specify the number. Okay, so here, the first square is normal, 1 second. Now, the second square, it says 2. So where is 2? Remember, this is 0. And then 1 second after 0 is this one here, which is 1. And then 1 second after that is 2, which is around here. So that's where this blue square would start, 2. And then similarly, for the orange square at 2.5, that would be around, well, if this is 2, then 2.5 would be around here. Around here. So when I click on run, what do you expect? I would expect the green square to run, then a 1 second delay before the blue square is run, and then as soon as the blue square is run, like 0.5 seconds after, then the orange square should run as well. Let's see if that's the case. Click, 1, there. Okay, so that's using absolute values. You would normally never use absolute values ever, because if you ever had a situation in your previous assignments or exercises where you're adjusting the timing and you decide, oh, let's change the timing at an earlier stage, well, that just messes up all your timings in the other animations, and you have to adjust accordingly all your values, and that kind of stinks. So you would never usually use absolute values. You would usually use the minus equals or the plus equals. But there is one use case where these absolute values comes in handy, and that's when you're syncing your animation to music, and you need your animation to hit at a certain beat at a certain time. Then you would use absolute values. Okay. The fourth way is what I said last week with labels. So here, now last week I kind of did it a little bit differently. If you remember last week, I said like timeline dot add, and then brackets, and then some kind of string for the label. You can do that, or within the timeline itself, you could actually add it right there in the position parameter where it normally would be. So you can add any kind of custom label or string there, and that will add the label at that point in time. So here, the green square, before the green square animates, at this point in time, that's where you're saying the my label is here. Okay. Now the blue square would normally go right here, so there's no change there. I don't see any change there. Now here is interesting. It's saying the orange square is referred to my label, which is this point in time. So that means I'm referring to this. That's my reference point. And then plus 0.5 seconds. So 0.5 seconds after that, this is what happens. So before I click on run, what do you expect? I would expect the green square to animate. The next thing that animates, according to this, is the orange square, around 0.5 seconds after. And then once the green square finishes animating, I expect the blue square to animate. That's how to read that. So let's check that out. There you go. It's a reference point to the beginning of this thing. Yeah, remember last week I said timeline dot add my label, and then below that I said timeline dot maybe to whatever, right? Instead of saying timeline dot add whatever, I'm saying you could also do this, which is the equivalent. Okay. The next one is your turn. This is your turn. Here's an example from Green Sock's webpage, and here is what the animation looks so far. So let me open this up in CodePen. Here's what the animation looks so far. Notice the car is coming in, and then the car goes up, and then the lift goes up. So something is wrong there. Okay, here's how it should look like. So I've given you a link here on my slides. Click on the GIF, and you'll see how it should look like. So there's the car, the man comes in as well. Then both the car and the lift goes together. Let's try that again. Car and the man also comes in as the car is coming in as well, and both objects are up together. So your job for the next 5 minutes is to make that happen. Okay. So try the different ways that you can use the position parameter. You could try all the different ways that I showed you. And there's lots of ways to complete this. And I'll ask at the end of 5 minutes to see, to ask you to tell me how you've done it. And most likely there'll be tons of ways to do this. Same thing. Okay. So I'll give you 5 minutes for that. All right. Anyone got it? No. Yeah, Mark. All right. Tell me what you did.
Oh, I just added like
So tell me which line. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Which one?
I just went to the TL section.
Yeah.
Car and man, I added a label called car, but those run. I just added car plus equals 1.
Yeah.
And then for the car and lift animations, I just added one label called.
That works. All right, cool. Now, I should have specified the man should begin animating 1 second before the car animation ends. So in this case, I would probably say minus, or sorry, what's 1 second before the car animation ends, which is what? Yeah, so the car, no, this is one animation going left. So yeah, I should have mentioned this. The man should begin animating 1 second before the car animation ends. And I think, is that what you did with car plus 1? No. Oh no, yeah, I think you're right. No, Mark, you're right. Anyways, let's try a different way. Yes, good job. Anyone else? Yeah, Josh, go. Oh, sorry, Joel, go. Oh, you did like this? Oh, I didn't know you could do that. It worked? Okay, so because I thought you could do this, where you could say my man minus equals 1, and that's doing both at the same time. Did you try that? My man. Oh, I see what you're saying. And then you. Okay. And then what happened? Try that out. There. Cool. Now I'm curious. I thought this would work, Joel. If I said my man within here, I thought that would be the same thing. Let me just see if that's right. Yeah. Yeah. So by doing it this is a shortcut way of doing what you just did. Yeah. Anyone else? No? Okay. So that's cool. Very good. So now I'm going to just show you some other different things that we kind of touched upon last week, but officially now, as well as some other things. So from to, I touched upon that last week, although it didn't work. So this time it works. So from to, you're just going to put in 2 different options here. So if I click on run, the square will start from the 500 point, which is around the right hand side, and then end at the left hand side somewhere. So if I click on run, that's the from to. There you go. Time scale. This is cool. So you could actually say something like this. You could say timeline.timescale and put some kind of number there. So in this case, 2 represents double the speed, or 0.5 is half the speed. So if I run this animation normally, it would run the animation 1 second each. But watch what happens if I were to refresh and then click on run twice the speed because of this time scale too. There you go. So you can actually use this to your advantage. Let's say, for example, your employer, your boss wants you to make an animation, and at the end of at the end of the day, after you finished your magnificent creation, boss says, "Yeah, we need that shorter by whatever seconds. It has to be this long, whatever." So you have to. You're not going to, change all your values of the plus equals 0.5 anyway. No, forget that. Just do timeline.timescale whatever, and that'll make it happen. Right. Yo-yo repeat. We touched upon this a little bit. So yo-yo is just a true or false value, where if it's true, the animation will keep going back and forth. Now it works in conjunction with repeat. And repeat, if it's 0, it means that the yo-yo is useless. It means nothing. The yo-yo is meaningless. But if it's repeat on 1, actually, you know what? I'll just play it. So repeat 0 is this. There. So all we're saying is that the green box moved to the right, which means that because repeat is 0, it pretends that's 0 there. That means this is meaningless. Let's refresh the page. And this time, it'll be the same thing, except repeat will be 1. So here we go. Click. So the 1 is actually going back. The going back part is the 1. Okay, that's where yo-yo comes into effect, because yo-yo is going back to where it came from. Let's refresh and try repeat 2. Here it is. So here's the repeat 1, here's the repeat 2, and it ends there. If you want infinity, let me refresh, you say -1, and it'll keep on going forever. Okay. Now, another thing you can do with timelines is you can pass those yo-yo repeat options, for example, when constructing new timelines. Let's pretend that you have all these .2, whatever in your code, and you don't want to, and let's say all those .2 statements have the same yo-yo, true, repeat, whatever. Instead of having all these .2 statements that all have the yo-yo, the same yo-yo, and the same repeat, you can just pass those options here when you're making the timeline constructor. And thereby, everything following that will have the same parameters. So if I click on run, this will go on forever because it has a repeat of -1, right? So this is equivalent of having this inside this timeline. And if I had more TL.2s, they would all have the same features as well. So that's something good to know. I should also put a link here, variety of options. So the question is, what other options can I include besides yo-yo and repeat? Here's your answer. Let's click on this link. It takes you to the GreenSox webpage. Click show more. There. So all of these you have at your disposal. So here's the repeat, here's the yo-yo, and you have all these other ones. So you can take a minute and read that if you want, see what you have. Another feature that you probably want to know is this one called repeat delay, which gets or sets the amount of time in seconds between repeats. So check this out. I have the exact same code as before. The only difference, I'm saying repeat delay is 1 second. So what would you expect? I would expect that the square will move, but before it actually repeats to yo-yo, it's actually going to have a repeat delay of 1 second. So it's going to hang here for 1 second and then does the yo-yo. And then once it's back here, it's going to repeat delay 1 second and then goes back again for the infinity, right? So here we go. Click on run. It waits 1 second, yo-yo, repeat, and then waits 1 second back. And so it's basically waiting 1 second on each spot. And that's what repeat delay does. Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to mention back in the mechanic exercise here is notice how they have a button here for restart, and notice how they did that. They basically have a timeline.restart to restart the whole animation. Similarly, back to the current slide, you have this one, play and pause. So you can control something, the animation to pause and play. So if I say play, it'll go. Now, if I say pause, it will, oops, if I say pause, then it'll call the dot pause method. So you have the dot play and the dot pause method at your disposal as well. Auto alpha, I touched upon this last week. It's identical to opacity, except that when it hits the value of 0, the visibility property will be set to hidden. Whereas if you were just using plain opacity, the DOM element is still there. And to demonstrate that, what I've done here in this example is I've attached add event listener clicks for both squares. So if I click on this square right now, it'll alert me I clicked auto alpha. If I click on this square opacity, it'll alert me clicked opacity. Watch what happens now when I run. So the green square will use the auto alpha 0. The green square will use opacity 0. Let's see what happens. Both will disappear. Now watch what happens. If I click in the area where the auto alpha is, click, nothing happens because visibility is set to hidden. Whereas if I click on where the opacity square is, click, I still get a response because the DOM element is still there. So it's recommended to use auto alpha for performance reasons and to not get that undesirable effect. And finally, we touched upon this last week and even this week. ATRA, you can tween any numeric attribute of a DOM element. And so here in my example, I'm going to animate the color to orange, and as well as just going to move to the right. So, and we're just using the ATRA. Oh, yeah. Okay, I purposely left it like this for a reason. So notice how my square kind of looks messed up right there. Why? And it goes back to what I taught initially today. What do you think is the reason? Yeah, the view box. Yeah. So right now the window is set to this. And if I were to make the window wider, then I could see everything else. Okay. All right, that is all I have for you. I will show you how to do Lab 9. I'll start you off Lab 9. I was told this last week by some of the teaching staff. So this is new for me, but I remember teaching this last year and it went horrible because when there's so many steps involved, people are going to get left behind and things don't work. And so this is probably the best way to do it. So here's Lab 9. Step 1 is watch the 1-hour module below called creating an HTML banner ad with green socks. So here's the link to that. So click it, it'll take you to Lynda, basically, lynda.com. There, this is the tutorial. Okay, so it's just sections 1, introduction, section 1, section 2. So you're watching all of this. And basically what you're creating is this. Here's what you're creating. There, that animation. All that, yes, all of that. You're creating a banner ad. Okay, they give you the exercise files right here. So download this. This should unzip nicely, and it should not be corrupt, whereas the file I put in Blackboard might be corrupt. So this is what you're making, okay? And this is why I asked you to bring your headphones so that you can pause and etc. as you need to. Let me go back to my Blackboard for a second. There it is. So once you've finished creating that, step 2, submit your CodePen link or local zip file. And so this whole thing is worth really 4%. And the really neat thing is, when the teaching staff told me about this, is it'll actually watch you or observe you watching the videos. So if you don't watch all the videos, your mark changes accordingly. If you watch all the videos and you watch 100% of the videos, you get a dash in your final grades, which means 100%. Okay. I don't know if there's a way to beat the system. Maybe there's a way to fast forward. I don't know. But yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Go back. Oh, of course, yeah. Because every time you watch one part of the video, I think it shows an eyeball, meaning you've seen it. Yeah. So this is where you work on your own until the end of class. This is an hour module video, which in this class ends in an hour. That's perfect timing. So put in your earphones and head to it, and hopefully you'll finish it before class ends, so you don't have any homework. And that's it. You don't have, okay, all right. All right. And I can come around if you have any questions. So.